From the 2017 edition of the Vermilion Regional Air Expo, I'm Randy Daniels. On board a piece of history, an aircraft that was actually used in service during the Berlin airlift around the World War II era. Happy to have with me two gentlemen who know everything there is to know either about World War II, the Berlin airlift, or this aircraft, and the gentleman who actually gets to fly this plane. I'm going to start with the person farthest from me, and that would be Tim Shope, who is owner, operator, chief cook, and bottle washer aboard this aircraft. Tim, good to be with you.
Thank you, Randy. We're delighted to be here.
This is an amazing piece of history that you're fortunate enough to get to travel around in.
Yes, and that's exactly how we look at it. We are fortunate enough to be able to do something like this, and we represent a part of history that began the Cold War era, just after World War II. Berlin became blockaded by the Russians, a move no one expected, hoping to force the Allies that helped defeat Germany, the United States, Great Britain, and France, to leave Berlin so they could have it all for themselves and try to have things do their way of thinking.
But we had other ideas.
We had other ideas. There were 2.5 million people without any way to sustain themselves. So actually, Great Britain came up with the idea of this massive airlift, which began on June 26, 1948, on how to sustain 2.5 million people by air. But it slowly got started, and 4,500 tons of supplies each day had to be flown in. And within a few months, we were meeting that goal. And it lasted for 15 months.
And when people think of an airdrop to help support and sustain life, you probably think of like food supplies and things like that. But that wasn't the majority of what was flown in, was it?
That is correct, and it was an airdrop. They landed, offloaded, and then took off again. And out of the 2.3 million tons of supplies delivered in that period of time, 2/3 of that was coal to run a generating plant so people could have electricity that had to be rationed during the week. Certain sections of the city did not have any electricity until their allotted time. And the reason for that was the big generators were in the Russian sector of the city, and they just shut them off. That this was their intent.
It took a lot of airplanes to fly that much in the way of supplies.
This type of airplane, the Douglas C-54, which could carry 20,000 pounds or 10 tons, we had 330 of them. Now, they all weren't being used at the same time. But in addition to that, there were 179 British airplanes. They participated as well.
The gentleman who gets to fly this aircraft for you is standing right between us, and that is Scott Suhay. Scott, a young man to be flying this aircraft, it's got to be a thrill.
Oh, it certainly is. And, Tim and I, we fly the airplane together. We kind of share duties. He's the captain, I'm the first officer. And it's just an absolute thrill. I can't believe I'm lucky enough to get to do this.
How does she handle?
Handles well. I mean, it's a relatively easy airplane to control. It's just the coordination between the crew that makes it different. It's very unlike a typical small airplane. It takes lots of people to make it work. It takes lots of procedural professionalism to make it work. Everything is mechanical. There's very little electric. So you're reaching for things and you're pulling things and pumping things, and it's very manual.
What in the cockpit? How much of it is modernized for current aviation standards, and how much of it is still original?
A little bit it has been modernized, but nothing extraordinary. A lot of older airplanes, people are updating with digital displays and things like that. We don't have anything like that. Ours is very much the way it would have been flown 70 years ago, which is part of the fun.
Tim, you probably know a lot of pilots today that are trained with what they call the glass cockpit. If trouble arises, sometimes they don't know how to go back and rely on those old instruments that are more reliable.
Yeah, this is basic grassroots type flying here. Probably the most modern upgrade we had is GPS. And of course that helps getting around much easier than what it was in 1948 and 49, that's for sure.
How many days a year do you get a chance to take this particular airplane out?
We have, before the gasoline issue came up, we used to do 30 events a year. We're lucky to get 20 a year now. Hopefully we can build back up to that as time goes on.
From the outside, this is an absolutely beautiful airplane to look at. It's been very well taken care of. On the inside, so much history to learn.
Yes, and that's what surprises people. They see the airplane on the ramp, it looks like an old cargo airplane. And by the way, the markings are the 48th Troop Carrier Squadron from the Berlin Airlift. That's the markings the airplane is in. But of course, once they get inside, then they can see this is an educational showpiece.
Well, we certainly hope that whether it be here at Danville at some point in the future or anywhere else that people happen to be, if they see this airplane, they will come in, say hi to you. And if Scott's still with you, because I know he's going to be leaving here in a year or so to join the Air Force, we hope people will stop in and take a look at the inside of this aircraft, learn a bit of history, and just hopefully be as marveled at it as I am.
Well, one thing we do, Randy, one of our missions that very few people do, we're noted for it, is we reenact the famous Berlin candy drop started by Gail Halverson, where he would drop candy to the Berlin children on little parachutes. We reenact that several times a year. Our next big drop will be at Kitty Hawk, and I'm proud to say this will be our 18th consecutive year dropping candy on our visit to Kitty Hawk. On December 17th, Wright Brother Day, we'll be flying over the Wright Brother Monument. And we've had that honor for, this will be 18 years. We also fly in Santa Claus and then drop candy to the kids. So it's a great time, and that's always our last event of the year.
Scott, I'll give you the coordinates to WITY on your way out of town if you want. You know, we accept all gifts.
We'll have a candy bar just for you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for talking with us. What a pleasure to meet the two of you. What a thrill to be inside this aircraft. I just wish you guys the best in the future. Keep this airplane going.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We hope that somewhere down the road you'll get a chance to do what I've gotten to do right now, and that is come inside this beautiful airplane and learn about history and hopefully meet these two gentlemen as well. From the Vermilion Regional Air Expo 2017 edition on WITY, I'm Randy Daniels.